Today we're digging into a commentary script from YouTuber Evangelina Scove. It's a deep dive on Colleen Ballinger's recent return, her victim mindset, and the whole controversy with her kids at her live show.
It is. And the writer has clearly, they've done the work. There's a lot of passion in here.
There is. But passion without structure, that can sometimes work against you, right?
It can, and that's actually a great place to start.
Yet, reading through it, I felt that the main argument about her victimhood was strong, but the delivery felt, scattered. It just wasn't landing as hard as it could.
That is the first major opportunity for improvement. The argument regarding the subject's victimhood is compelling, conceptually, but it loses its impact because it's fragmented across the video, instead of being one cohesive arc.
When you say fragmented, do you mean it's just repetitive? Because I would usually think repeating a point helps drive it home.
You would think so.
Remind the audience every few minutes she's playing the victim, and it should stick, right?
In a format like this, a video essay, it actually does the opposite. It feels like the script is just spinning its wheels. So let's look at the timeline in the current draft.
Okay.
Early on, we get that great clip where Ballinger says her brain is trained to assume the worst. She's framing herself as, just someone with bad luck.
Right, and the narrator jumps right on it, says, no, these aren't random, these are consequences. Lists the canceled Broadway show, the drop in views. It's a direct hit.
A perfect rebuttal. But then what happens right after that?
Patreon plug?
The Patreon plug, then we drift into a bit about a tat in a window, then a whole discussion on healing, and then maybe 5 or 6 minutes later, we circle back to accountability.
So the audience has all this time to cool off. The anger just fades.
Exactly. By treating this victimhood theme as a recurring reaction to random clips instead of a foundational thesis, you just kill the momentum. It feels like we're watching a reaction stream, not a structured critique.
Right. Touch on victimhood, we sell a subscription, we look at a cat, and then we remember to be mad again.
It just dissipates all the tension.
I see. So instead of a pile of bricks, we have bricks scattered all over. How do we build the wall?
You have to restructure. The suggestion is to treat this victimhood versus accountability theme as a single, devastating block of analysis. And you do this before you even mention the children or the live show.
Okay, walk me through that. How does that look in practice? Reorganizing the clips.
All right, so imagine this sequence. You start with the clip. Ballinger says, I expect the worst. Let that hang in the air for a second.
Okay.
Then immediately, no ads, no cats, you hit the viewer with that list of her specific past behaviors. The weird interactions with minors, the Broadway job getting axed. You connect her bad luck directly to the cause.
And then?
Then, right on the heels of that, you introduce the healing clip. And you show that her version of healing depends entirely on ignoring the very consequences you just laid out.
So that creates a linear logic chain. She ignores reality, then frames the results as just bad luck, and then uses performance to validate that whole delusion.
It becomes a cohesive essay. Instead of commentary, ad break, commentary, it becomes assertion, evidence, psychological payoff. You consolidate that whole argument into one tight 3-minute block. By the time that section's over, the viewer is completely sold on the premise. You've closed the door on that topic, and now you're free to move to the next.
That makes a ton of sense. It stops the script from just meandering. It's funny, though. Once you fix that structure, you start noticing other cracks, specifically when the script pivots to the kids.
And that's our second big critique. The strength of the evidence.
Yeah, the part criticizing her for letting her children watch the show. Now, just to play devil's advocate for a second, the script is pretty fiery about this. The narrator is clearly upset about her son, Flynn. Isn't that emotional weight enough to carry it?
Emotion gets attention, but facts keep it. The problem is, the entire segment is weakened because the narrator admits they don't know the specific details. And that just opens the door wide for counterarguments.
You're talking about the song.
The singing child moment, yeah. The script builds this really high-stakes emotional case around the fact that Flynn sang a song from the show back to her. And the narrator lists lyrics from that show, about cock-blocking, PMS rage, really adult stuff.
Which is objectively not okay for a kid.
It is not. But then, right in the middle of this righteous outrage, the narrator says, I can't attest to what they were singing, and I hope it was a very innocent song.
I see the problem. They're hedging.
It's not just hedging, they are handing the defense a loaded weapon. If I'm a skeptical viewer or a Ballinger fan, the second I hear, I don't know what song he sang, I'm out. I'm thinking, okay, so maybe he sang a nice little tune about a cat, and you're just blowing this whole thing out of proportion.
But doesn't the narrator have to be honest? If they don't know, they can't lie. If they say he sang the cock-blocking song and it turns out he sang Twinkle Twinkle, their entire credibility is shot.
Build your main argument on a guess. The fix isn't to guess better, it's to shift the entire focus from the specifics of the song, which are unknown, to the environment and context, which are known facts.
So stop trying to guess the lyrics at all.
Stop making the lyrics the smoking gun. The argument shouldn't be, did he sing the dirty song? The argument should be, why was a 7-year-old in the audience for a show that included detailed discussions of his mother's sex life?
That's a subtle shift, but it totally changes the burden of proof.
It changes everything. If you say he might have sung the bad song, the defense is just, no, he didn't. Game over. But if you say he was in a digital room where you were talking about cock-blocking your husband, there is no defense. It doesn't matter if he memorized the clean song or a dirty one. He was exposed to the context of the dirty one.
I like that. It removes all the speculation. You're basically saying the specific song doesn't matter. The room itself was the violation.
It creates a trap the subject can't argue their way out of. It solidifies the ethical critique because it relies only on what we can see and hear, not what we're guessing.
Speaking of what we can hear, we have to talk about the narrator's voice. Not the audio quality, but the tone. This script feels incredibly anxious.
It's the pre-defense.
Right. The hedging around her mental health. The script is just full of these little apologies. Feels so weird criticizing somebody while they're crying. Or it makes me feel like the world's biggest asshole.
I know, I sound like a broken record. It's everywhere. And look, I get why they're doing it. The internet is brutal. If you criticize a mother talking about postpartum depression, people will come for you. The narrator is trying to show empathy to protect themselves.
So isn't that a smart move strategically? If I acknowledge her pain, I look more reasonable. If I just hammer her while she's crying, I look like a bully, don't I?
There's a very fine line between showing empathy and projecting insecurity, and the current draft crosses it. The constant apologizing, the qualifying, it all dilutes the authority of the critique and it wrecks the pacing.
It's like they're arguing with a comment section that hasn't been written yet.
That is exactly what it is. And it's exhausting for the listener. It makes the narrator sound defensive, like they're not confident in their own point.
So how do you fix it without becoming a heartless robot? We can't just ignore the PPD, can we?
No, you can't ignore it. That would be just as bad. The suggestion here is to use a validate and pivot strategy. Think of it like yes and from improv, but for making an argument.
Okay, give me an example. What does that sound like?
So the current version is something like, I'm sure she did have postpartum depression. I'm separating that. You person who's about to angrily comment, I'm not taking that away from her, but it's just messy.
And the improved version?
While Ballinger's struggles with PPD are undoubtedly real and difficult, mental health struggles do not absolve a creator of the responsibility to maintain boundaries with their audience and children.
Her situation, yes, this is hard, and then you pivot immediately to the standard of behavior, and that doesn't excuse this.
And then you just stop talking about it.
You never apologize for it again for the rest of the video. You've established your stance. You are a reasonable person who understands mental health, but you're also a critic who understands professional boundaries. You don't need to beg the audience for permission to speak.
That would clean up the runtime. You'd probably lose 2 minutes of fluff just cutting the apology.
And the content that remains would hit so much harder.
Okay, so we fixed the structure, tighten the evidence, fix the tone. Now I want to get to the angle itself, because there's a critique here about originality.
This is where the script has the most untapped potential, I think.
The feedback says the material touches on this really profound psychological insight about external validation, but then it kind of buries it under the more surface-level critique that the Miranda character is just unfunny.
This was honestly frustrating to read because the narrator is so close. They identify this crucial motive. Ballinger says in her own vlog the only way she felt like her again was by performing. The narrator catches this. They note she needs that validation to feel whole.
But then, almost right away, the script just pivots to mocking Miranda. Let her die. It's unfunny.
It retreats to cringe commentary. It becomes a review of the quality of the art, that it's bad, instead of an analysis of the function of the art.
But hold on, is Miranda is unfunny not a valid critique? If the show is bad, shouldn't the commentary channel point that out, especially if she's charging money for it?
It's valid, sure, but it's cheap. And more importantly, it's subjective. Her fans think it is funny. So if your argument is just, this isn't funny, you're just shouting your opinion at them. But the validation loop theory,
That's objective psychological analysis.
So how do we pivot the script to focus on that instead?
You have to connect the validation point to the kid's point. This is the big aha moment the script is missing. You have to ask, why were the kids watching the show? Why did she need them there?
Well, logically, because she lost her global audience. She was canceled.
That's it. That's the story. Ballinger requires audience validation to feel whole. When the general public turned away, she didn't look inward for self-worth. She turned to the only captive audience she had left, her children. She performed for them to get the applause she lost from the internet.
That is dark.
It's incredibly dark, but it's also so much more insightful than just saying she told a dirty joke in front of a kid.
It explains the why.
It connects the PPD, the live show, and the inappropriate parenting into one unified psychological theory. She isn't just a bad mom in this one instance. She's an addict looking for a validation fix, and she's using her children as the supply. That transforms the piece from a complaint video into a psychological study.
It moves the critique from this character is cringe to this system of self-worth is broken.
And it's all there in the source material. The narrator quotes her saying, "It's the only thing that makes me feel whole." They just need to follow that thread all the way to the end, instead of getting distracted by how annoying the Miranda voice is.
It feels like the writer was maybe afraid to go that. Like it's easier to make fun of the red lipstick than to diagnose the narcissism.
It is, but we're not here for easy. We're here for impact. If you want to make a video that people are still talking about a year from now, you have to hit that psychological angle.
Okay, so let's wrap this up. Let's give the listener a clear checklist for the rewrite. We've covered a lot.
Let's simplify. 4 main steps.
Step 1, consolidate that victimhood argument.
Yeah, don't let it get interrupted. Group the expecting the worst clip right next to the consequences of actions rebuttal. Make it one solid block before you move on to anything else.
Step 2, stop guessing the lyrics.
It just weakens your case. Pivot the argument to the environment. The issue is the exposure to adult themes, not whether the specific song Flynn memorized was explicit. The context is the harm.
Step 3, cut the defensive hedging.
Use the yes and method. Validate the PPD struggle once, clearly, firmly, and then move on to the boundary issues. Stop apologizing for making a valid critique.
And finally, step 4, lean into the validation loop.
Use that psychological insight to explain why the children were involved. That's what ties the whole video together. That theory that she's using her children to replace the audience she lost, that's your thesis statement.
The core instincts in this script are absolutely. The narrator correctly sees the hypocrisy, danger to the kid, the dependence. It's not a bad script at all. It's just unfocused.
I completely agree. The raw material here is excellent. It just needs a sharper edit to really let it shine.
We really encourage the listener to resubmit this after tightening the focus. We would love to see the next iteration. And that does it for this critique. Keep writing.
And keep analyzing.